Central Coast Mariners signed their new Scottish striker. Are Reds the new dark horses in the A-League? And a Socceroos preview for the upcoming qualifier against Vietnam. Welcome to the Coastwood Football Podcast. My name is Lockie, and this is the show where we sit down to have a nice casual chat about all of the big stories happening in Australian football when it comes to the A-League men's competition. My team, Central Coast Mariners. And of course, at the moment, we're getting into Socceroos season. It's Socceroos season at the moment. The qualifiers are on. Some crucial qualifiers too. And of course, talking about Socceroos is good fun as well because, and I know like being so many A-League supporters listen to the podcast here, and we all, like regardless of what A-League club you support, there's a good chance you support the Australian national team as well. So it's something that we can all get behind, that's for sure. But we are here back again on the couch with a lovely set. Of course, the sauce bottles are out as always. And I want to dive into this first story, and there's some things to unpack because obviously it's a big signing, not just for the Mariners, but for the A-League. And of course, I'm talking about the 26-year-old Scottish striker, Jason Cummings, who has arrived on the Central Coast. It's been rumoured for a little while. It's finally official. But there's some things to unpack in terms of what does it actually mean for the Central Coast Mariners in their lineup. So that's what I think people aren't really talking about as much, and I want to dive into in this podcast, and would love to, as always, get your thoughts on these things. So whether, of course, you're listening on, watching, or rather on YouTube, or listening on a podcast platform, you can jump into the YouTube comments or hit me up with a DM on Instagram or Twitter or wherever. But let's talk about it. So, of course, the move was announced just yesterday from this podcast release on the Monday. And he comes, obviously, there's a bit of, for those that are unaware, actually, I should bring it up. He's got a bit of off-field controversy, and I don't want to focus on that. I always like focusing on the football side of things, but he has had some issues with. Just last month, he attended an event dressed as the Joker and rocked up to training and was deemed unfit. It all sounds it's all kind of comedic, and he's got a bit of a I don't want to call him memey, but he's almost got that meme quality about him. Just his. I guess he's become a bit of an icon in a way. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. And I'm sure he's a great guy. And it's great to have him at the club as well. But he's got that... there's certainly been some off-field stories about him. Let's just say that as well. And you can do your research on that if you'd like. But in terms of his footballing career, he's recently been playing at Dundee FC in Scotland, where he scored this past season, made 14 appearances, scoring 4 goals, which is... pretty average. But in terms of his overall career, it's not too bad. He's played most of his career in Scotland, and in the Scottish Premiership, he's made 112 appearances in total, scoring 63 goals. He's also spent time at Shrewsbury Town, Peterborough, I think, as well. Some in the sort of League One in England, and I think he spent some time in the Championship as well. He was at the books at Nottingham Forest. So look, he comes to the club with some pedigree, and probably the most, in terms of the personnel at the Mariners, we've got Marco Renia, who featured at the World Cup in 2018 for Costa Rica, and he's played all over the world. But Cummings has played against some quality opposition, and he's 26 years old. Like he's still relatively young. Like he's still in the peak of his career, which is the exciting thing. Usually for these, overseas strikers that you bring in, they're sort of a little bit further on in their career. But Cummings is still in the prime of his career, in my opinion, and has the potential to really light up the A-League. Now, the question is, where does he fit into the Mariners lineup, and simply who starts up front? And I actually did a podcast episode, this would have been like a month or two ago, where I got a couple Mariners fans on the podcast, and Riley and Dean, they came on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I posed the question to them, like, what strike partnership is going to work best for the Central Coast Mariners? Because we're sort of blessed with strikers at the moment, which is sort of hilarious, because I remember it was only 3 or 4 years ago where we were just in desperate need for a striker who could score goals. We had Astrobel come in and he was a flop. Ross McCormack arrived at the club one season, and we were excited about him because he did relatively well at Melbourne City previously, and he didn't work out at all either. Roy O'Donovan did okay for us for a season or two, but obviously he moved on to different things. And we've just been lacking at least one decent striker, and now it feels like we have 4 or 5. So let's list them right now. We've got Marco Orenia, Mateus Maresh. Those are the two who we've been seeing pretty much start up front this season. Matt Simon, we know, is out with this. I mean, it's become a long-term injury, and who knows when we'll see him back. Now Jason Cummings, so that's 4 players now. And then we've got Nikolai Muller, who we imagine is going to play in one of those positions as well, who has only seen I think 10, 15 minutes of a football pitch this season, though, at home to the Wanderers off the bench. And then you got the young guys coming through. I mean Damien Sekenis, who's was promoted in terms of his contract this season to a senior contract. And we've got the other guys like Garen Kowal, Harry McCarthy can play up there as well. So there's so many options. My first concern that I want to raise is it's going to limit the time on the pitch for those young guys, which is a shame for players like Damien Sekenis, who I know was probably eager to get some more game time this year, especially during pre-season, releasing Matt Cahill, releasing Jordan Smiley. I was quite surprised. If you listen back to the podcast of when that happened, which was a few months ago now, back in it would have been October-ish, I think. I was quite surprised with those moves. I was like, okay, why two young promising strikers, and he's getting rid of them. So I was wondering what the thinking was behind there. Mateus Maresh obviously came in, and with Mateus Maresh coming in, I was like, okay, cool. We've got Simon and Orenia, that partnership that worked so well last season. We've got this young Brazilian striker, Mateus Maresh, coming in. We've brought a Nikolai Muller from the Wanderers who can play as one of those number 9s if needed. Probably more of a playmaker rather than a number 9, but can play in up front in the front line there. But and then Damien Sekenis, and I was like, cool, we're set. That's a solid group of strikers. And then to bring in Jason Cummings, so the thing that I have brought up previously, and I think it pretty much confirms it now, is that Matt Simon will most likely not be involved for very much at all, if all, this season. For those that don't know, he's got a back injury, he's got a disc problem in his back, and it's just been going on and on. And he featured in the round of 32 of the FFA Cup against Blacktown City, which was just the week before round 1 in the A-League, and he hasn't featured since, and who knows when we'll see him back. And we wish the best for Simo. And dude, I just want to see him back on the pitch, because if he calls it quits at the end of the season, which is a possibility, because I think he's 30. I think he just turned 36 or 35. I might be wrong. Around that. But I hope we need to give him a send off, man. He's a Mariners legend. Regardless of what you think of him, his time at Sydney FC, where he scored a couple goals against us at home. But we need to give him the proper send off. So hopefully we can see Simo. But anyway, talking about Jason Cummings, will he start? Potentially, Mariners play Sydney FC away this weekend. Will Jason Cummings start? I don't think he will. I think just because he's just arriving in the country and just settling into the side, he'll probably start off the bench, which is obviously very common for new signings. But in terms of who drops out and sort of what setup we go for, I can't see Monty dropping Orenia. He's just been too strong this season. Scored a fantastic goal in our 3-1 loss against Melbourne City. So Marco Orenia and his leadership as well. Orenia's leadership and his influence on the park is just as important as his individual ability, you know what I mean? So Mateus Maresh, I think, is going to be the one to make way. I wonder what is going through Maresh's head right now with the arrival of Jason Cummings. Mateus Maresh, I wonder what he was told by Sergio, by Monty, by Ken Sherembi when he came to the club, in terms of we've seen you play promising football in the league in Singapore. We want you to come over here. We're going to give you regular game time. You're a young and up-and-coming player. We'll help, give you a boost for your career, so you can score another big overseas move or something. With Cummings coming into the side, I think many people expect Cummings, just with his stature and just with that experience here, that he'll get the nod if he's fully fit, when he is fully fit, for the remainder of the season, ahead of Maresh. And I wonder how Maresh is going to go with that. I wonder now if maybe there's something we're not even seeing. Maybe Maresh is going to cut his stay short. Maybe I don't see any chance of Orenia's leaving from all accounts. Orenia's happy with life here on the coast, and his family's set up here, and he seems to really love the club. That's just purely speculation about Maresh potentially cutting his stay short. But it raises the question, if Matty Simon did come back and was fit, it's not only who do you start up front for the Mariners, but who starts on the bench? Is Matt Simon operates well off the bench because of the physicality that he brings on, and he can really hassle those tired defenders late on in a game. But you got Mateus Maresh, you got to try and fit on the bench as well. And then what that does mean then is that you're hampering is that the right word to use? It's not good for the development of the likes of Damien Zakenis, who players like him, Harry McCarthy, I was really excited about them coming through because of the number of young guys. Again, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, I'm so excited about the Mariners youth that are coming through and getting game time. And I want those young guys to keep getting game time. If all these guys are fit, if Matt Simon comes back and fit, Damien Zakenis isn't playing a game for the rest of the season and might as well go out on a loan move or, do a Jordan Smiley move where he joins, a Blacktown City and an MPL level club. Because he won't get game time, man. So look, it's a fascinating one, and for me, just to sort of put a full stop on it, what I would like to see, and then Nikolai Muller. I didn't even talk about Nikolai Muller. What's going on, man? We got too many strikers. And the crazy thing as well, I just want to say as well, is that I wish we had brought in another central midfielder or a central defender. I think those are the positions we need strengthening in. Yeah, so. Again, I don't want to complain about the move because we should be thankful. And as I mentioned, it's like, crying out for a striker a few years ago. But it's a bit awkward now in terms of like, well, now we have too many. It's like, who do we start? And I'm like, how are we affording all these strikers at the same time as well? But they're managing to do it. And it's just going to be a good headache for Nick Montgomery to figure out what is his best strike partnership. But for me, I mean, I think if Nikolai Muller is fit, he has to start. He's just got so much quality. But you can't drop Marco Renia. I think Jason Cummings comes off the bench. I would start Renia and Muller, Cummings to come off the bench, and then Mateus Maresh to come off the bench. And then I think Matt Simon will be out for the whole season. Maybe Matt Simon won't be picked even if he does come back. Anyway, it's, as you can see, it's an absolute headache. And I just want to reiterate, as a fan, I would have preferred to see a central midfielder just to help that experience, just to add a bit more experience as well as in that back line as well, just to bit more cover, especially with the likes of Kai Rolls and Ruan Tong getting internet like Socceroos attention as well. So anyway, I could ramble on about that forever and ever. But I've got some other talking points we got to get to. We'd love to get your thoughts on what strike partnership would work best for the Mariners, so let me know. Let's talk about Adelaide United. As I mentioned this at the top, potential new dark horses, if we want to use that title. I don't really like the term dark horse, and the A-League is so up and down that is anyone a dark horse? But I guess Adelaide United are a team who sort of people wrote off after the first few rounds. They were struggling to find 3 points. They were struggling to score many goals and really, just winning games simply. But at the moment, they've been turning it around. And let's look at their last 4 results. Going back to and this is just in the A-League, so disregarding that cup knockout in the quarterfinals to victory. 4-0 at home to Wellington. That was a convincing result. 1-1 away to Melbourne Victory, which was an incredibly entertaining game with that dramatic finish. That gritty 2-2 draw with Melbourne City, where Ibisuki scored off the bench to equalise, and then the 3-1 win away to Brisbane, which really consolidated it for me. They'd been building some decent form and not losing games. And the win away to Brisbane, a Brisbane Roar side who were coming off a little bit of confidence after drawing away to Sydney FC the previous week, and on the previous Wednesday night last week, winning at home to Perth Glory. So, and at home again, they probably would have been optimistic about getting a result against an Adelaide United side who are sort of was at a similar level as them. I'm on the ladder, Adelaide a little bit higher, obviously, but yeah. So positive results, and I tell you what, the win on Sunday against Brisbane is so important, and it's so important because it makes those draws against Victory and City, who are 2 of the best teams in the country, look so much better, right? To look at the last 4 games across the A-League, big wins against Brisbane and Wellington, 2 of sort of the lower side teams, which they should be beating those sides. No disrespect to those clubs, and then against Victory and City, who are like favourites for the top 4, to be getting draws against those teams, especially away to Victory. To get a draw there was massive. So when you look at those results, it's like, okay, this Adelaide team, it means business. Like those 4 results are all very impressive. That it has to be mentioned as well, though. They have played the most games out of anyone. They've played 9 matches, which there's some teams who are still 3 or 4 games behind them. So that has to be said. But those results do now take them into 5th place on the ladder, which is ahead of Mariners now, who currently sit in 6th, which seems incredible based off the form of the season. You'd assume that Central Coast Mariners would be higher than Adelaide at the moment, but again, it's the games in hand thing that obviously put it out of skew. You know what I mean? So look, Adelaide United. I'm impressed with them with what they're building, and I think they're finding the right setup now. I mean, Ben Halloran's gone. It looks like Stefan Mork's going to be on the way out as well. I think when they get the likes of Lachlan Brooks settled back in, I've been impressed with Bernardo Oliveira, the young guy, the young winger. Craig Goodwin's developing some good form and had a fantastic game against Brisbane, scoring 2 goals. And obviously, his form has been rewarded with a Socceroos call-up. They're building something good there. And I think as well, like midfielders like One Day and Isaias, like 2 very experienced quality midfielders who both have, Isaias won the championship with Adelaide back in 2016. One Day was key to Perth Glory's midfield when they made it all the way to the grand final under Tony Popovich a few years back as well. So class midfielders, I guess a little bit of still frailty in defence. I mean, they've got to make sure they keep someone like Mikael Jakobsen fit because he can be one of the best central defenders in the league if he stays fit. So maybe in defence, and they've had goalkeeping injuries as well. Joe Gautri's been out. He's back in now, but James Delinov, their first choice, is out at the moment as well. So defensively, that's probably where the concerns are. And look, if Ibusuki gets firing, yeah, they can make it work. And they've got, backup there with Mo Toure involved and George Blackwood, Blackwood's already grabbed a couple goals, which will boost his confidence as well. So, yeah, man, I think it's going to work out for Adelaide United this season. I think if you're a Reds fan, you should be optimistic. I'm not convinced that they will make finals. I'm not going to say they will make finals. I don't think they're one of those teams that are really... in terms of their consistency, I mean, those last few results, their consistency has been improving. Those, not losing. But yeah, I think they'll be one of those teams to be competing for 5th and 6th. I think they'll be around there. They could finish anywhere between 5th and 8th for me. I think they'll be sort of a mid-table side, looking just to sneak into the finals. But again, would love to get your thoughts on the Reds. They have impressed me recently, and they could be a side to watch for the remainder of the season. The next talking point I want to talk about, and this is one that is sort of, I guess, I don't know if it's floated under the radar this weekend, but it wasn't necessarily the most high-profile game of the weekend. But Wellington picked up a pretty impressive 2-1 win against Western United. Western, one of the best teams of the competition so far this season, defensively have just been so impressive, so many clean sheets. And, the new signings of Leah Lacroix and Leah Lacroix, I've been impressed with Neil Kilkenny, and they're finding some good chemistry in attack as well. They're not prolific in goal scoring, but the likes of Connor Payne and Lockie Wales have been playing well. Dylan Wenzel-Halls has grabbed a couple of goals so far this season as well. So there's a formula there, West United, that I believe will finish in the finals. Some people I see online aren't necessarily convinced that they will purely because of... the way they play. I see a lot of comments that are smashing the John Aloisi's tactics is boring football tactics. But look, if it works for them and it gets them the wins, then that's all you need, hey? Wellington Phoenix, that's the team that I want to talk about, man. And Gayle Sandoval, who came in, and what a debut, scoring 15, 16 minutes into his debut. Lovely little finish from Sandoval. But I was really impressed with just the work around that. I mean, I pulled up some of his stats here. 3 shot assists, 5 take-ons in total, and he won 8 out of 13 duels, which is okay. Pardon me, this is a player who Wellington desperately needed. And yes, this is just one game, so we don't want to get carried away. But after the loss of Ulysses De Villa, if you go back and listen to any of my pre-season podcast episodes previewing the season, doing my ladder predictions, one of the things I was concerned about with Wellington Phoenix, who I predicted to come last this season, was the failure to replace Ulysses De Villa. Now, that's a very hard player to replace. He won the Johnny Warren Medal winner, so it's not like they can just bring anyone in. They've brought in Gayle Sandoval, which is a bold move to bring this Mexican player in. He's come on a loan move, I'm pretty sure, just for the remainder of the season. And from what we've seen, he has flair, he has pace. His agility was good as well, and his ability to find space as well, and his ability to link up with his teammates as well. Considering this was his first game, he looked very comfortable. And Ufuk Taylor threw him straight into the starting lineup. He was starting in this one. I think it's going to work for them. And when you look at that attack now, it looks a lot more impressive and cohesive in the front four that lined up in this game. So you got Rennie Piscopo and Sandoval in the number 10 positions, and up front it was David Ball and Gary Hooper. That's their strongest front four, in my opinion. And then you can bring on the likes of Ben Old and Ben Wayne off the bench, the young guys who can have an impact. I think it works a whole lot better as well because I have been playing David Ball in sort of that number 10 role where Ulysses DeVee was playing. I don't think that's David Ball's best position. I think he works better as a striker anyway. So it's everyone wins. Everyone wins by Gayle Sandoval coming into the club. And he could be the one to revolutionise this club a little bit. And again, I'm not confirming that. I'm not getting carried away, but I'm just suggesting that I just want to highlight the importance of his role in this club because they needed that player. They needed that experienced, classy attacking player to link the midfield, to link defense to attack, right? And man, really, I think if you're a Phoenix fan, you should be excited about what he's going to do this season because, he could be really impressive. I want to talk about, there's a couple other topics I want to talk about. We're going to talk about the Socceroos towards the end of the podcast. But I do want to touch on Sydney FC, who have sort of been on a bit of a downward trend and are one of the hot talking points at the moment in the A-League men's competition. They recently picked up a 2-1 loss to Perth Glory on Saturday night at home. But the result before that, the 1-0 loss to Central Coast Mariners in the FFA Cup semi-final and the 1-1 draw at home to Brisbane Roar just the weekend prior in the A-League. There seems to be something going wrong at Sydney FC, and I don't know whether it's a lack of confidence or whether it's a tactical thing or whether it's a personnel thing. People online have been pointing their fingers at different things, at all those things. Is Steve Corica still the right man to lead this side? Those are the questions that are now being raised. The key statistic that I've been keeping on in their recent games, and I want to mention here, which is really concerning for Sydney FC, a team who we are so used to being a top side in the competition. In the most recent game against Perth Glory, 30% shot accuracy, only 3 shots on target. Against Central Coast Mariners in that semi-final, they only had 12.5% shots on target. That's incredibly low. Against Brisbane, 25% shot accuracy. That's all 3 numbers very, very low. They are managing to create some chances. In these games they're having 10, 12, around those sorts of figures, shots on goal, but only 2 or 3 are actually finding the target. And in all these games, they've barely tested the opposition keeper. They really have. Mark Birighitti made 1 crucial save in the semi-final, but apart from that, he was barely involved. I don't know what it is. When I look at Perth Glory, Bobo and Cam Sober started up top. Bobo was non-existent. He barely touched the ball. Cam Sober's been their most likely attacking outlet and has been, having some impact in these games. But there's a worry now for Sydney FC in terms of they're simply not hitting the back. They're not finding the back of the net, or they're simply not hitting the target first of all. You've got to challenge the keeper. You've got to create chances. And you think with the quality that they have, even without the key players that they are missing, with the likes of Lafondra and Barbarouses, that they'll still be able to do that. And there they are to an extent with Cam Sober finding dangerous positions and getting Trent Bahagia in behind. But it's not the same. It really isn't the same, and it's costing them so far. It's costing them in these games, losing to Perth Glory at home, not able to beat a Brisbane Roar side who played their second game in over a month at home as well. Especially these home games against these sides who are lower down on the ladder, they should be going in. My predictions heading into this round, I was like, Sydney FC are going to beat Perth Glory. They're coming off that 1-1 draw with Brisbane and the loss in the cup. They'll come back strong here and they'll beat Perth Glory, and they couldn't, and they didn't. And which team did take the chances in that game were Perth Glory, who have been struggling, haven't been performing at their best at all in their last couple of games back. So Sydney FC, they're letting other teams into their games by not taking their own chances, and that's the concern for Sydney FC. The thing that I want to highlight for them is that I think they desperately need Lafondra and Barbarouses to come back ASAP. I'm not sure what the timeline is exactly on those guys coming back soon. I'm pretty sure they're not out long term. They should be back, I imagine, within the next month, next few weeks or so. But dude, it just goes to show that they need those guys. How clinical is Lafondra up front? Even Barbarouses last season was building some good goal scoring form. Those guys are going to bring that killer, they have that killer instinct in front of goal, to find the back of the net. So they need that. They desperately need that. So for Sydney FC, that's letting them down at the moment. Defensively, they've been pretty good. They held Mariners out for a long time. Overall, against Perth Glory, they were good. Perth Glory just took their 2 chances when they got them. So defensively, they've been good. It's almost an opposite thing of between Adelaide and Sydney at the moment. Like Adelaide at the moment, I was like maybe question marks at the back, but they've been pretty good in attack. Whereas Sydney FC, they've been pretty good in defense, but question marks in attack. So it's interesting how these teams are the dynamics of their different teams are looking. But again, would love to get your thoughts. Actually, maybe what is the best strike partnership for Sydney FC? I think Patrick Wood should be starting if Lafondra's still out. Patrick Wood, get the young guys more involved again, because it wasn't too long ago where they beat Macarthur 3-0. So, look, they can still turn it around. It's not all doom and gloom for Sydney FC, but it's just a big deal because we're so used to seeing them succeed. Yeah. Here's the last one I want to talk about. We will wrap up the podcast talking about the Socceroos, and of course, we are doing a watch along on YouTube for the Socceroos Vietnam qualifier this Thursday. Very excited for this one. First of all, I want to dive into my lineup prediction, and again, it would be interesting to get your lineup predictions for this game. Apparently, Aiden Hustic is out with suspension, so he will be unavailable for selection for this game. So I'm going to dive into my lineup prediction. Matt Ryan in goals, of course. Across the back four, Ryan Grant, Trent Sainsbury, Miloš Degenek, and Aziz Beige, I feel like is the most likely and most common back four. As amazing it would be to see Mariners Kai Rolls get picked. I imagine Degenek with his experience will get in there to partner Sainsbury. In midfield, in the number 6 positions, I've got Jackson Irvine and Aaron Moy, and again, it's not the most solid of back six of number 6 pairings. Defensive midfield pairings, just because ever since Mile Jedinak left, I feel like we haven't really found that lock in sort of the defensive midfield area, in terms of we haven't found a locked sort of setup. Mile Jedinak was an out and out defensive midfielder, and allowed for his partnership with whether it was Aaron Moy or whoever else was playing in there, Massimo Luongo. Allowed those guys to sort of flourish in a more attacking sense. So those players have to be smarter in that sort of role. But Irvine and Moy, both fantastic players, so I think have to be starting. And then in that number 10 role, Tom Rogic as well. So, whether Ryan McGree comes into that midfield 3 will be interesting as well. I think Ryan McGree, there's a lot of hype around McGree at the moment, obviously scoring that move to Middlesbrough. And there's a sense that McGree's got a really bright future ahead of him now. Being at a good club like Middlesbrough in England's second division, there could be something special blooming there with Riley McGree. So maybe he could get a shot. I wouldn't mind seeing him in there as well. Martin Boyle on the right wing. I've got Craig Goodwin on the left wing. I just think with his form in the A-League at the moment and at home in Australia, start Craig Goodwin. Give him a run. We don't have Awen Mobile at the moment. He would be starting, but Craig Goodwin, give him a run. And let's just see how we go, man. I trust Goodwin's ability. On his day, he can be a fantastic player, one of the best Australian players. I believe that, if he really gets firing. And then up front, here's maybe the most contentious position where we could debate, because we do have the likes of Mitch Duke, Matt Leckie, Jamie McLaren, and even if you want to play Mark Attilio up front as well. So for me, I've gone Jamie McLaren, and my reasoning is 2 words. Here's my reasoning for picking Jamie McLaren as a striker in this game. Amy Park. Jamie McLaren won the Golden Boot last season in the A-League, and it was off the back of scoring a number of goals at Amy Park. Jamie McLaren loves playing at Amy Park. His home ground, man, and this game being played at Amy Park, you got to start him. Start Jamie McLaren. He could potentially score 2-3 goals in this game if he's hungry, if he's up for it, and if he gets firing early. Jamie McLaren could bang in the goals, and with the support around him, with the likes of Aaron Moy and Tom Rogic teeing him up, Martin Boyle, Craig Goodwin playing in crosses from the sidelines. That's a high quality supporting cast for Jamie McLaren to start in this game. Start Jamie McLaren. Yeah, I reckon Mitch Duke or Matt Leckie might get the start, because Graham Arnold just likes to go for his the lad that likes to go for familiarity, Graham Arnold, and that's what we've seen with the Socceroos selection. I'm still a little bit startled that Matt Leckie was selected over Andrew Naboot, but anyway, Start Jerry McLaren. That's all I'm going to say. Would love to see Marco Tilly off the bench. I think he has that X factor. He brings something different. Have to see Riley McGree off the bench as well. So look, would love to hear again your Socceroos lineups predictions or your preferred lineup down in the comments as well. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode of the Coastal Football Podcast. So many big topics to talk about. Would love to get all your thoughts on all these things. So jump into the comments to continue the conversation. Have a fantastic week, guys. You can make sure to keep subscribed to the Coastal Football Podcast on all of the podcast platforms on YouTube. New episodes every single Tuesday, and of course, make sure to keep subscribed specifically to the YouTube channel because that's where all of the main content is dropping, the round predictions, round reviews for the A-League men's competition, and so much more. All right, guys. See you in the next one.